This is Conversations at the Well, a monthly podcast that invites you to listen to ideas and stories that will refresh and challenge. It doesn't matter what state you are in. When you come to the well, you will always leave inspired and renewed. Let's listen to today's conversation, hosted by Bishop Roy.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Conversations at the Well. It is really a joy to be having this first conversation with my good friend, colleague over these many years, Reverend Wayne Vernon, who pastors out there in Canada. Welcome, my friend and brother. How are you?
I am doing well, and thank you so much for the invite, and thank you for the friendship that exists between us.
Indeed, the friendship has blessed me richly over 30 odd years of rich
Amen.
friendship. And we
Yeah,
have journeyed with each other in good times and bad times. And we thank God.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wayne, you and many of us who have journeyed with you, we often describe you as a visionary leader who possesses great courage and passion. When did all of this focus on leadership begin? Tell us about it and tell us about yourself.
That is a very good question, Roy, but that could take us all day. Um, this thing began early in my teen years, very early, maybe before my teen years, when God issued a call to me and just impressed on my mind the need to be involved in Christian leadership and Christian ministry.
Mhm.
Um, if I'm to look all the way back, as it has evolved over the years, I would say it began with my parents,
Okay.
who were church planters and very, very involved in the life of the community. They led in a way that was different from the regular way I saw church being done. They were always involved in the life of the community through the church.
Mm.
And then I went to JTS at 18 and a half when I was
Tell us,
impressionable.
tell us what's JTS again.
Jamaica Theological Seminary.
Okay.
I went there when I was 18 and a half years old and met 21 different denominations
Wow.
with different perspectives. In my dorm, four of us were in my dorm, and the four of us were from four different denominations. It gave me an opportunity to see several different perspectives on leadership.
Mhm.
And then, interestingly enough, I had a conversation with Bishop Beeson yesterday.
Yes.
Um,
And,
and
and
I,
Bishop Beasley is one of our past national overseer here in Jamaica and past
yes,
Caribbean field director, a
right.
giant of a leader.
And he was the one who appointed me as National Youth Director.
Mm.
And I said to him yesterday that I am still uncomfortable with the way he appointed me, because he called me and he said, Vernon, pack your things.
Yes.
He said to me, well, that was divine orders.
And we have to follow divine order.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yes.
So when I got to the youth department, I ended up with a community of leaders. And God connected me with a community of people, like a Roy Notice and a Steve Samuels and, Donald Roberts, to name a few,
Yes.
Barrington Brown, just to name a few. And that community has helped to shape my life. And if they call me visionary, is because they have made me a visionary. And that community has been amazing. The final thing I would want to say is that when I got to the youth department and connected with that community, I started reading books by John Maxwell
Yes.
and and encouraging the team, to my community, to read those books. And I learned then that what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, the people you interact with, they're going to shape your life. And so I blame you guys for whatever shape my life has right now.
Well, it is your life is in a good shape right now. And in fact, I want to thank you. You're the one who introduced a person like me to writings of Maxwell and other such writers. And
Yeah.
my appetite has not been satisfied since. Still
Yes.
yearning, still yearning after those writings. But
Yeah.
no, Wayne, you're serving out in Canada. Tell us a little about that experience.
The Canadian experience is now 11 years in.
11, wow.
Yes, 2010. A very interesting journey. I got here 2010 and August, no, the last day of July, straight from the General Assembly, we came. And by the first Sunday in November, I was assigned a church 1 hour east of Toronto. And I was tasked with the duty of replanting an old congregation,
Mm,
which was an interesting journey.
yes.
And 25 members out there leaving from the Old Harbor Church um, in St. Catherine, Jamaica, and leading 25 members in a mostly Caucasian community.
Mm,
But was a very good journey. And then 6 years ago, 2015, I was asked to come back into Toronto to lead the West Toronto Church of God. And that's where I am now. God has been very good to us. I've been given several other responsibilities. I'm on the National Council, the Regional Council, and I'm the Dean for the Canadian School of Ministry. So quite a lot has happened since 2010. Feels a little too much sometimes, but it is what it is.
well, to whom much is given, much is required, and you have a lot to offer. In fact, one of your latest offerings is your own book
Yeah.
that you have written. You seek in your book to address the issue of leadership, that there has been a unprecedented leadership focus, in this season. What would you say are some of the manifestations of that kind of a focus?
Yes, there is a major crisis in leadership. And when we read the literature,
Hmm.
almost all of the leadership experts are speaking to the issue, the crisis of leadership in the society. There is this unintentional posture towards leadership, anti-intellectual posture by many,
Hmm.
many sectors, and also an anti-technological posture that
Mm.
many have taken. It is amazing the hypocrisy that we discover in all of this, because many look to the mega churches and they talk about the programs that these mega churches have without
Right.
calling names, but
Hmm.
they don't understand the amount of money that these churches have spent for technocrats, and you know um, they've spent on equipment and so on to be able to produce what they produce. What you and I produce, we are producing it on a dime, but they have paid for it. In every sector of society today, we notice that there's a crisis of character.
Mm.
There's a crisis of competence. And Fred Garman explores this in his writings. Um, there's just a failure of several organizations, including some that were very successful,
Yes.
you know, and it's not just the church, political organizations in the country in US, in Jamaica, you know, when I look at the leadership in the US, there's an election, and of all the 300 and odd million people in the US, the top persons who were vying for leadership in the US are men who are close to their 80s.
Mm.
It 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 it,
That
it,
that
it
that's very interesting, Wayne. And I
yes,
mean, you speak about the crisis as it relates to technology, as
yes.
it relates to character, as it relates to competence. You also bemoan in your book the fact that there's what you refer to as the prevalence of unintentional leadership. Can you unpack that a little for me? Unintentional leadership.
If you have not yet had your council retreat for Bishop notice.
Yes.
And the church year for Church of God begins in September.
Yes.
There's going to be chaos.
Mm.
Any church, any pastor who is going into the new church year and have not yet had a retreat or an extended meeting or several meetings to discuss their vision and the mission of the church and the budget and post-COVID-19 strategies and those kinds of things. Any pastor who is in that mode right now is in big trouble, and the church is going to be in big trouble. What informs how I'm going to do ministry going forward? Because you see, the why I'm doing ministry is going to inform the how I do ministry. And if I don't have a reason for existence, if the church does not have a reason for existence, we're going to be in trouble. The church I pastor is pivoting right now because we have our organizational structure, we have our ministry operations, etc. And then come COVID-19, and then the government has brought in several refugees in a hotel that is adjacent to the church. And what do we do with the opportunity that we now get? One of the things that I'm sharing with my leaders is the whole concept of Rehoboth. God has now given us room to flourish.
Wow.
In this season, God has given us room. He has given us opportunities to do ministry in different ways. And when a pastor is not training leaders, not sharing vision, not just turning up at church on Sunday morning to do church the way it was done the week before and the year before, in COVID-19, that is unintentional. And you're going to get the results of it. The church is not going to grow, and the ministries are not going to be impactful because we're not intentional. And it doesn't matter whether the church is small or large. If we're not deliberate in what we do at this time, we're going to be in trouble.
Well, that's the concept of intentional leadership, Wayne, is very powerful. I mean, it really talks about assessing and planning and casting vision and being very aware of the context that we are in. And it would seem to me that visionary intentional leadership seems to be leadership that is ahead of its time while impacting the season that they're in. So tell me, Wayne, you have talked about this in your book, and you have unpacked it by talking about the 6 practices of effective leadership. Let me ask you first to just list what those 6 practices are, because we really want people to purchase the book, so we don't want to get too deep into it. But just list what are those 6 practices of effective leadership.
Effective leaders discover emerging leaders. They draft them. They develop them. They deploy them. They delegate to them, and they direct them. They support them. They manage them. They journey with them. Yes.
Let me pull one of the 6
yes.
and ask you to talk about it a little. The fact that effective leaders must develop others.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to talk a little about that.
If a church is to grow, if an organization is to grow, the leaders must first grow. If the leaders don't grow, the organization will not grow. There are 2 things that an effective leader has to pay attention to. One, has to pay attention to making the development of the next generation of leaders a priority. And the second thing is that effective leaders must have a plan to make this a reality. You can't just have the priority without a plan. You have to have a plan. And when I read the book of Ephesians, I discover in chapter 4 that God has gifted the church with gifted leaders in order that we may develop the other generation of leaders. I like to talk more about leadership preparation than I do about leadership development.
Okay.
Right? I do prefer that terminology, preparation, and it comes out of Ephesians, right? To
Right.
prepare God's people for works of ministry.
Mm.
I think Bishop noticed that effective leaders and exemplary leaders the world over, they make developing others a priority because they understand that this is how Jesus did it. Jesus could have walked around and healed people until the time of his crucifixion, but he prepared a group of persons. And when I read the biography of the group of persons, I would not have some of those persons on my pastor's council.
Yes, Reverend Vernon, let me interrupt you a bit. I have found, just given what you have said, I have found that many of us as leaders, we prefer to find persons who are already prepared, equipped, and well developed. We put them on our team, and so that they can make us shine. Instead of the model that you just mentioned, finding persons, equipping them, and developing them. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yes, I see that even in my own ministry. Let me share this with you. One
Mhm.
of the mistakes that churches make, especially larger churches who have a budget that can afford it, is that we seek out people who have been successful in a particular context. We hire them to work in our context, to make us shine and make us look good. But we do not develop them.
Mm.
And so after we have exploited them, we let them go and get somebody that is already developed, instant coffee.
Yes.
We get someone who is already developed, and we exploit them again. And after we have rinsed them, we move on. It does not work that way. You do not develop legacy that way. People are not developed that way. Whenever we bring someone into a context to make us shine, we need to make them shine.
Isn't that risky though? Isn't it risky to bring near to you persons who are not as professional, not as developed? Is it worth the risk, Wayne?
It is worth the risk. It is very risky. And I can tell you, you win some, you lose some.
Yes.
When you win big. And when you lose, you could lose your congregation. It is that serious. It is that dangerous, right? But we don't live in a perfect world. And if we should look at all the what ifs, then we would never develop anyone. And when we're developing people, we have to make it clear to them that they need to protect their character.
Yes.
If they don't protect their own character, if they think that harming someone, hurting someone is okay, it's not okay. We've got to help them to understand that they have a character to protect. You get what I'm saying? Yes.
No, the issue of character is major. And you talk about it in this book entitled Six Practices of Effective Leadership. Now tell us, Wayne, why should a pastor buy this book? How will this
Yes.
book benefit a church leader, a leader in another sector of society, or a pastor?
Let me attack it from the pragmatic level, Roy,
Yes,
Dr. Notice.
Roy is good, Wayne.
Roy is good. All right.
Yes.
Good. No worries at all. Um, I would love to know that pastors catch this thing early.
Mm.
If I did not learn leadership principles very, very early, I would have been in trouble. I would have made some major mistakes. And I would encourage every leader, every pastor to not only buy the book, but read the book
Mm.
and apply the principles. There's this principle of 30-day back guarantee.
Tell
You
me
know,
about that.
No, if you buy a product and you don't like it, you can send it back in 30 days, you know.
Right, right.
No, I guarantee you though that if you apply these principles and you don't see the results in your congregation over the
Mm.
next church year, then see me, and I am willing to do a free seminar with the leaders of your church, because I'm so convinced about it that this is what I teach my congregation. I've been teaching my congregation this over the last number of, maybe when I was in the youth department, we were kind of working through all of this,
Yes, 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 yes.
and that's been a while, over 20 years. And I've used it in every congregation I pastor, including this one. And recently, we have, as a congregation, reached out to a number of churches. We're training 80 churches now, Bishop noticed. 80 churches
Wow.
across 6 countries, 6 denominations, and 2 languages. We're training them. We had 230 odd people apply to learn principles. And it's amazing how they learn
Absolutely.
the principles
No, that's
and how they
fantastic.
implement them.
That's fantastic, Wayne. Um, as you continue to teach and to train persons to navigate in this space that we're living in, what kind of leadership do you think, Wayne, is required in this season of global human suffering, this season of uncertainty, this very complex season? What is it that is required of leaders in this season?
Um, from a spiritual perspective, we need leaders who are Christ-like.
Mm.
We need to read the book, Lead Like Jesus. You know, I'm almost sure that no, it wasn't you who gave me that book. You've given me a number of books, but I don't think you gave me that one. But Lead Like Jesus, Ken Blanchard, is
Mm.
an excellent book for us to read and to recognize that Christ-like leadership is needed right now. Caring leadership is needed. Courageous,
Mm.
consistent, creative. And I want to stress the creative,
Yes.
because as we pivot during this pandemic, we have to be creative. And it is amazing how creative some of us have had to become. We need leadership that is character driven, but we also need competent leadership. And Pastor Notice, if you would allow me to say 2 more things that I know.
Yes, please go ahead.
We have to have incarnational leadership. We've got to get involved in the life, the zits, the life of a people, their life situation. We've got to be embedded in it, as Jesus came into person's experience. And with all that's happening, Pastor Notice, if we do not have patient leadership, then we're going to be frustrated. And the people we're leading are going to be frustrated.
Wayne, we could talk on and on as you talk about leadership that is required, courageous, caring, creative, incarnational. This is powerful stuff. Where can we get your book, the 6 effective practices of leaders?
So the 6 practices of effective leadership can be
Right.
had at the website www.coreleadershipservices.com, which is a leadership consulting agency that I lead at this time. You can get it there. It will be available on Amazon and on all the other publishing houses. It is going to be available in Kindle version as well as hard copy. All of those are in place right now. The date, scheduled date for the book to be out is in September. So pre-ordering is going on right now. And we see quite a bit of traffic going on during this time.
Well, I'm so happy, Wayne, that I got a peek into the book, and it's powerful stuff. And I look forward to so many others having it. Wayne Vernon, man for this season, leader extraordinaire. Thank you for sharing these moments with me at the well. And I trust that as many persons tune into this conversation, they will be inspired and they'll be blessed. Great talking to you, Wayne. Let's talk again soon.
It was my pleasure being with you, and I look forward to future conversations. God bless you in all you're doing.